as the great minds of our world probe deeper and deeper into the unknown abyss of space.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
The greatest questions facing our planet still lay beneath the surface, only seconds from our lives. In our distant past, we crawled out of our watery home, forever to inhabit the land and stare longingly at the stars. But something pulls us back. Our love of a summer swim, our fascination with the diver's underwater spectacle, our love of all things aquatic. Throughout history, we've tried to bring a little of that underwater world into our homes and public places. The goldfish of China and Japan, the indoor ponds of Egypt, Greece, and Rome started it. The kings and queens of Europe gave the public access to many mysteries that fascinated and thrilled the masses, but still from afar. As the world emerged from World War II, the hobby of fish keeping began to reach many private homes throughout the world. But it was still a hobby of the privileged. In the 1960s and 70s, prices came down and access to home aquariums were possible for all. However, the hobby was not yet mainstream. Much of the equipment needed to properly maintain a window of underwater life was still somewhat complicated, cumbersome, and intrusive. With the dawning of the new millennium comes a new era in fish keeping. The modern tools perfected over the last decade make bringing a window of life into your home both easy and affordable. Many have found an aquarium in the home or office may lower blood pressure, soothe nerves, and allow observers of these underwater worlds to drift away into a relaxation that mere pictures could not inspire. In many homes, the modern aquarium can play the long-lost role of the family hearth to bring a center of interest to family life. Sit back, relax, as we explore the infinite possibilities of fish keeping. What is a natural environment? How many types of environments are there? Most important though, can I do this? From betta bowl to exotic reef tank, all are not only possible today in your home or office, but fun to set up and easy to maintain. As we chronicle the mysteries and evolution which encompass aquarium fish keeping, we must begin with the origins of the hobby as we know it today. In the mid-1800s, scientists primarily involved in the study of ichthyology and botany formed expeditionary groups to study natural aquatic life in various tropical zones of the world. Of specific interest were Western Africa, the Amazon Basin, Central America, and Southeast Asia.
How does the fish breed in the wild? Does it hide its eggs? Does it stick its eggs someplace? Does it just scatter them around?
If you think about the ocean, it's one great big honking aquarium there, guys. And the only difference between Antarctica and Hawaii is basically temperature and a few different guys with many arms and legs swimming around.
I try to make a net myself, and I come out and net all the mosquito larvae. I feed in all my live bear, all the fresh water at home, so that's really interesting, but I don't think I have that moment like in the past anymore, because everything here is different,
Dr. Herbert R. Axelrod, the pioneer of the modern fish-keeping hobby, led many expeditions to the tropics and is one of the world's most prolific writers as well as a renowned ichthyologist. Dr. Axelrod actually discovered and domesticated many varieties of fish kept in aquariums today.
My first exposure to the aquarium industry was in the early 70s in Ardsley, New York, which was right outside New York City. My father bought an aquarium, wholesale aquarium, outside of New York City, named Paramount Aquarium. And it was one of the first aquariums that started in this country. They imported the first neon tetra and a lot of the first aquarium ornamental fish to come into this country.
Well, Dr. Axelrod was a fellow who certainly had an eye for what North Americans wanted, you know, and he was down doing geological work in the, I believe, the 30s in Brazil, and he saw all these little red and blue fish, and he went, wow, cool, I'll bring some back with me. Well, that was the neon tetra, and that was essentially the beginning of the large-scale fish import and aquariums as a hobby in North America. He came up with a number of other different interesting things that he brought back, both fish and fossils. Started TFH Publishing, which was Tropical Fish Hobbyist, because there was a demand now that he'd created the hobby. People wanted reference books. And then once they had their reference books, well, they needed a monthly publication, so that started. When he retired out of the business, he'd made a lot of money, and he was able to devote himself to his true hobby, which was music. His father had been a very good concert violinist, and he was a mediocre player, but he loved the instrument, so he started collecting Stradivarius, and he actually ended up collecting a Stradivarius quartet, 2 violins, a cello, and a viola, and that had been made specifically for the King of Spain. And instead of locking them away and where nobody could see them but him, he loans them out to students to do their master recitals. So a wonderful example to other people with money who wish to do some form of philanthropy. You know, you can do a lot worse than follow the example of Dr. Axelrod.
The aquatic life available for the modern aquarium are most likely descendants of those early scientific expeditions. The fact that their natural home is in the tropics brings up several important topics of interest to the modern fish keeper. What is the natural environment of tropical fish? And how close can we come to that environment in today's aquariums? In order to explore the native environment of the 4 main types of tropical fish, we travel north to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Here at the world-class Vancouver Aquarium, we find an exhibit unique in its complexities and its environmental accuracy. The aquarium has created 5 unique native environments: Amazon Basin, Central America, Southeast Asia, Western Africa, and the newest area of interest, the Great Rift Lakes of Africa. All are unique and can be seen here side by side for comparison. We spoke to Jen Reynolds, the curator of this unique exhibit, which covers over an acre of both indoor and covered outdoor aquariums and terrariums. Each environment contains an impressive area of fish, plants, and aquatic life of the region.
So this is an area where fish that I just get in are quarantined and treated if they have diseases, and also where I get to breed fish. So I'll take a couple of nice adult fish off display if I think they're ready, and work with them back here, get some fry, raise them up, throw them back in the exhibit.
We asked for a behind-the-scenes look into the monumental task of maintaining such elaborate displays. First, we will take a look at the aquarium's experiments with breeding.
I've got some baby Latacara fry, little Epistos, rainbow fish fry, all growing up in there. And the reason I've got them all in the one tank is because that's the tank that I'll feed Artemia to, Artemia nauplii, which is like the best baby fish food. And it's also a tank that I pay special attention to do lots of water changes in to keep fish growing well and healthy.
The display tanks are beautiful from the viewing area and appear of a manageable size, but behind the scenes we see a much larger and deeper facility.
I used to have the attitude of, I've got this 30-gallon tank, I'm going to put the biggest possible fish I can get in here and, you know, big tank busters, but I find the really wonderful thing about having small fish in big tanks is that you see the natural behavior.
When simulating the Southeast Asian habitat, the museum used bamboo that seems to be growing from the bed of a stream. In nature, this would be a flood area, but here we see it as a clever illusion. It's hard to imagine the time and work that goes into an exhibit of this nature. As Jin feeds these remarkable giants, we bid farewell to Vancouver for now and head down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a look at how aquarium plants are propagated and shipped to aquarium stores around the world. Many may ask, where do stores get enough plants to fill the tens of millions of aquariums worldwide? Does this not put a strain on the native environments, possibly stripping lakes and streams throughout the tropics of their natural plant life? Though such ecological problems plagued the hobby in the distant past, today aquatic plants are raised in safe, environmentally friendly nurseries devoted to the propagation of live aquarium plants and perfecting them for use in the fish-keeping hobby. To find out more, we traveled to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and spoke with Brad McLean, director of the Florida Aquatic Nurseries, the largest of its kind in the Americas.
Florida Aquatic Nurseries was founded in around 1955 by my father. He was an ichthyologist and was working for the Game Commission and decided he saw a need for cultivated aquarium plants, so he moved down here to Fort Lauderdale where he figured the climate would be conducive and started Florida Aquatic Nurseries at that time. His whole background was regarding fish and so on, but he did see, by paying attention to the aquarium industry, that there weren't a lot of real good quality plants on the market at that time. And he thought by growing plants, getting a good quality plant, and having it 52 weeks out of the year, that there was a need for that.
There are many methods of cultivating true aquatic plants for the home aquarium. We look first at natural reproduction through runners and seeds, followed by the tissue culture method, modern science's aid to the reproductive process. Both methods utilize basic hydroponics and grow the plants out of water.
All these plants that you see here, even though we grow them above water, are true aquatic plants and they live underwater. The thing that people find interesting is that a plant can live and look like this above water and then go completely underwater and not skip a beat, just keep right on growing. But if you think about it, it really makes sense, and the plant has to be able to do that because most of these plants either live in the Amazon River basin where the water level fluctuates tremendously, or they live out in the Everglades. And as you know, the Everglades can go completely dry in their dry season, which is January and so. And then during the wet season, they can be under 3 feet of water. So they have to be able to exist both ways or they wouldn't make it in nature. This is an old-time sword. It's a species, Echinodorus osiris. It's sold in the U.S. as melon sword. It's been in the trade for as long as I have. It's been used in hybridizing other sword plants. It's a very good aquatic plant. Has a little bit of, especially underwater, has a little bit of red color in the new leaf, hence the name melon sword. And the plant behind me is probably the most famous of all sword plants in the trade, the Amazon sword plant. Now there are a couple of different varieties of Amazon sword. This is Echinodorus blairi, and it's probably the most widely used sword plant in the trade today. This is Echinodorus marble queen. It's a Radican sword, but the name is Tropica marble queen. And like all the rest of the sword plants, this puts babies out on bloom stalks. And you can take the babies off and plant them down in your fish tank, or for us, we can take the babies off and start a new plant. One of the ways that we propagate plants, as you can see here, we need millions of plants. So to get the number of plants that we need to mass produce them. One of the ways we do that is through tissue culture. Tissue culture is also known as micropropagation, where we originally took a plant, one of these adult plants, to a laboratory and ask them to make these for us. So now on a monthly basis, they bring whatever numbers we ask them for, whether it's 1,000 or 10,000 of each plant, and they bring them to us as a very, very small plant. That plant, for example, these plants would be a small plant that have probably been out of a test tube or a growing vial in a laboratory for 2 weeks' time. As you can see, the leaves are rather tall and skinny. When we get them, we have to really baby them and protect them. We cover them completely so they get no sunlight, and that's why the leaves are sort of skinny and thin. You can see in 2 weeks they've already got roots coming out of the bottom. Now these plants are a month old, and as you can see they're a little shorter, but the leaves are much stronger looking and more solid looking, a little wider, and so on. So 6 months from now they'll end up to this size, and I'll show you what the end product or the sellable product is. It's more along this size. You can see the roots are fully developed out of the pot. There's numerous plants in the pot. Now, this is sent to a retail store, and it's displayed like this in the retail store, and you as a homeowner are going to buy this and take it home. What do you do with it? Do you plant it like this? Do you take the pot off of it? There's a lot of different bits of advice out there right now. We tell you, we think that it's okay to leave the pot on, and we also think it's okay to take it off. So it's really your preference. If you do take it off gently so you don't disturb the roots so much. I would suggest starting with the pot on and see how you like it. If it doesn't bother you, the plants are going to be fine in the pot. One of the negative aspects of the pot is that if you don't have enough gravel to cover it, it really doesn't look very nice in there. So if you don't like the appearance, go ahead and gently take the pot off. And if it's so root bound that it's difficult to get off, you can take a pair of scissors and cut the pot, and then you can take that off. As far as the material that they're grown in, it's a material called rock wool. We actually import this material from Denmark. And what it is, it's a mined rock that they heat up and spin like cotton candy. So it's all inorganic. It will hold some nutrition for a period of time when you put it in your fish tank. So if you want to leave it on, go ahead and leave it on. If you do want to take it off because you don't like the appearance or for any other reason, you can gently take most of it off. The plant's still going to do just fine. So it's really up to you. I know there's a lot of different scenarios floating around that you have to do this or you have to do that. But we certainly see here that you don't have to do anything. It's personal preference.
Now we move out of the greenhouse area and see how bunch plants are propagated underwater and harvested for use in the home aquarium.
A lot of the plants that we sell will grow underwater. And this is a prime example. This is Hygrophila deformis. A common name in the trade is water wisteria. It's a very easy plant to grow, a common plant, easy to find in your retail store, and a very good plant. Now, the way we propagate this is in this tank, we'll have soil in the bottom, and we'll take cuttings and plant them down in there. And if you were to pull them up, you would see that just like any other plant in your fish tank, they have plenty of roots. What we do when we go to sell one of these is we come in and we'll take a cutting, and the cutting will be sold. As you can see, there's an old one that's been sold before, and it puts out new branches that will grow and mature that we can cut at a later date. So this particular tank, for example, we could probably cut it once a month. When it gets up to the surface, we'll come in and take all the tall cuttings out of it, and those will be sold off. An interesting thing about this plant is that many of these plants, like I mentioned before, can grow above water as well as underwater. And many of them look very different when they're grown above water than underwater. And this is a prime example. This plant with no water on it has a complete leaf, just a little serrated edges around it. And then the longer it's underwater, the deeper the serrations get until it gets completely divided. Each one of these leaves, there's a node where the node is, will put off a baby plant. So if you cut it here, you'll get 2 new plants coming off. But also, interestingly enough, if you take that leaf off and let that leaf float, it will actually produce a plant right on the end of it. So there's actually some meristematic tissue in there that'll go ahead and generate and form a whole new plant. And many of the aquatic plants that we grow underwater will do that.
We've seen true aquatic plants are grown by a hydrological method out of water and others completely submerged. Now let's look at hybrid growing methods for plants with under substrate runners and for those with bulbs.
This is a plant called Liliopsis. The common name in the trade is microswords. It's very common. You see it in most retail stores, and it's really a very good aquarium plant. I know people have trouble with this one. This one needs a lot of light. It grows on runners, underground runners, so when you start